Today we're going to be installing the 5100 coilovers from Bilstein. We're also installing SPC upper control arms, and in the rear we're doing an add-a-leaf from Icon.
Today we're going to be installing a 3-inch lift kit from Yoda Mafia. This kit is a 5100 Bilstein lift. Bilsteins have been around for years and are one of the go-to cheaper alternatives. I do say they're cheaper, but they are pound for pound best bang for buck that you can get out on the market. That sounds like a lot, but I truly believe that these are amazing shocks. Bilstein was the innovator of shocks back in the day. This simple monotube design allows you to package the shock absorber into nearly any configuration for your vehicle. These shocks use a patented digressive valving that reacts for on- and off-road performance. Today we are going to be utilizing these shocks with some Old Man Emu heavy-duty springs. We also chose to add SPC upper control arms to give us maximum adjustability. These arms will restore your vehicle back to factory ride quality by correcting alignment angles, and also give you an upgraded greaseable ball and their trademarked xAxis sealed flex joints. In the rear there are a few different options that you can do, from single spacers to adding additional leaf packs to a completely new leaf pack. We chose to go with adding some additional leaves to give us a slightly higher spring rating but not sacrifice drive quality. If you're looking to add additional weight into your vehicle, then I highly suggest going with a completely new leaf pack.
Alright, so one of the first things that we need to do is we have to disconnect the spindle from the upper control arm, and before we go about doing that on the ball joint here, we're going to take off the ABS line and the brake line. That's a 10 millimeter up top and a 12 millimeter down here. We're also going to take off the sway bar while we're doing that, just to make things a little bit easier to work around, and that's going to be a 17 millimeter right there. To pull out this, actually the brake line here, there's a little pin right up there on the top, so you just have to twist it and pull it out of that little pin spot, and that frees it out of the spindle, and that gives us a little bit of freedom when we're working around this. Now what we need to do is pull this cotter pin out, so just reach around here on the end, pull that clip out, and then you can pull the whole thing around. The way that this one works is it has this like hook on here, and that's what hooks into one of the castle nut spots, so once you pull that out and away, you can slide the whole thing out. 19 millimeter here is the castle nut. We're just going to pull that off. Actually, what we're going to do is lower it down just a little bit, so there's this little bit of a gap between the castle nut and the spindle, and we're going to hit with the hammer here on the side, and you'll see that this will lower down just a little bit, and it'll catch it on this castle nut so the whole thing doesn't drop out and away from us. All right, so just a few taps here should do it. There it goes. See how it dropped down and got caught right there on that castle nut? So now what we can do is just slowly go the rest of the way here. And one of the things you should do, just going to put a little floor jack or a jack stand underneath. So when this lowers down, it'll help support it on that jack. Now I'm just going to take a zip tie and I'm going to push this guy back and kind of push it out of the way and help hold it up. So the next thing we're doing is now we're going to loosen and take out this strut or the coilover here. We have three 14 millimeters along the top, and then we have this big old 19 that holds the bottom, so I'm going to break that one loose right now. Okay, just using the 14 millimeter box end to get these guys off, and mainly this because of the back one over here, there's not enough room to get a wrench up on top there. All right, we're gonna pull the coil out now. We're gonna have Brendan push down, and then that should slide this out. And there we go, just that easy. All right, so we're installing the shock here. One thing to pay attention is where the bolt patterns are for the top. The one that's gonna be straight back is you're gonna pay attention to that is where that is, and it should be in line with the head of the shock. We're gonna slide this down over the top. Ready, push. Hold on. All right. Okay, and we'll go up and in. All right, there we go. Coil-over is in. All right, the next one that we're doing is we're removing the pivot bolt here. This is a 19 millimeter. There is this hard line in there, so you might need to push it out of the way or unbolt it, which is like a 12 millimeter just to kind of push that back. You could use a box end wrench if I was thinking straight. So we'll just box end wrench this guy down. So here's a big difference between the Tacomas and the 4Runners. The Tacomas hit that chunk of metal right here. The 4Runners just happened to pass by it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pry that thing back and make a little bit of extra room so that we could try to thread that up. The driver's side's always the tough one because there's a whole bunch of wires and stuff over here because this is where the battery is. So we're gonna be careful. We're gonna pry that away and see if we can make enough room for it to fit. All right, so I'm just gonna use some channel locks and kind of reach up and pry this stuff back. See how much room I can make. Let's see. Looks like we can. Is it gonna hit? Is it past it? Oh, it's just underneath. Nice, dude. All right. Can you keep going?
No, yes.
Okay, hold on. I can take it if you want. All right, so just bending that little bit out right there allowed us to get it through. So make sure that you keep track of the pivot bolt and the nut that goes on it. They did supply you with new washers, so we'll use those. The next step here is we're going to install these SPC upper control arms. To do so, you first need to set up where the ball joint is going to be sitting. We have ours in position C. The way that it works is you kind of have this star nut and it twists and then you put it on there. They have a whole paper that comes with the instructions of these, and it depends on how high of a lift you're going to be doing to what position that you're going to be setting these up in. So refer to their paperwork when you get these control arms. Another thing I'm going to note is these washers have this little crown on them, and the crown goes to the outside of the upper control arm on both sides. There's a little gap in there, and that's supposed to be there. That's how it is. So don't flip it around the other way. That's wrong. Have it the crown touching the X-axis bushings in there, so everything's going to fit. Now what we're going to do is put this into place. One thing to take into note is to make sure that these wires or these brake line setup is all on the outside of your upper control arm. All right, making sure I'm on that these wires are on the outside. 1 second, Brennan. Here comes the washer. Can you see it? Okay.
There we go. There we go.
All right.
Perfect.
All right. That was much easier than the other side. All right. And we just put the washer with the crown facing in. We put the nut on, and we're going to torque this guy down to 85 foot-pounds. Also, another thing to do is make sure you put the clips back in. We took those out because there's some cable there, so we just put them back in. Torquing these down to 47 foot-pounds here on the upper coil-over. All right, we're just assembling everything now. I'm still got to do this bolt right here, which is the spindle nut, but I'm gonna set this sway bar up again just so make sure it all goes into place before we tighten everything down. We'll set that up and then we'll push this guy into place right there. Put this in, do that, do this. There we go. All right, we're gonna tighten the castle nut here to 45 foot-pounds. I know the hole is right in this location, coming from this side, that direction, so I've got to pay attention to where that hole is so I can put the pin in 45. And let's see if that fits the castle or the pin. Ah, perfect. Then what we do is we're just going to pull this guy through as much as we can and bend it down. You want that head to be as far into that castle nut as you can. I usually bend it around all the way. Give it a few smacks and tuck it up. All right, now what we're doing is we're just setting the bottom bolt in and we're pushing this into place. Trying to slide it through. I need down a little bit more, I guess. Hold on. Can't get it in the hole. There it is. A little bit. Do it again. Wiggle it. There we go. Thank you. Nut and bolt on. As you probably noticed, the truck is in a whole different position, so we've completed everything up in the front. We added some grease to the ball joints on those SPCs, and then when we put the tires on and we lowered the vehicle down and under its own weight, we torqued those upper ball joints, the big nut there, which is like a 32 millimeter. We torqued that guy down to 150 foot-pounds of torque. And then we drove it out and drove it in and made sure everything was staying straight and staying level. You are definitely going to need to get an alignment when you're done with a lift, and really any lift, and especially this one with the SPCs. There's so much play in there that you can adjust with. So we spun the truck around. Now we're going to work on the rear. Step one here is to loosen the wheels, take those guys off. We're going to lift the truck up and we're going to support it underneath the frame so we can drop the axle down, because we have the add-a-leaf springs that we need to get in there. So we're going to disconnect the axle from the springs and try and get those new springs underneath. All right, so one of the things we're going to do here is we're going to loosen this brake line, because we're going to be lowering the axle away from the body and away from these springs. So let's just get these in here and do a quick loosen right now so that we don't have to worry about them later. There's one here and one up here. They're both 12 millimeters.
Did you do any of the brake line brackets on the axle?
I think those are all gonna be as long as they don't go over the leaf springs, everything should lower the same. I'm curious about those. We just need to pay attention to these things. The ABS probably, and then those actual two brake lines. These ones are your e-brake. So the goal here is we've got to lower the axle down, because we are gonna we're gonna take this overload spring completely out. So we're now have to undo the U-bolts. So then this is going to drop down. We do have it supported by a jack underneath here, so it's not going to drop too fast and all the way down at once. And we should probably take the shocks off, because those might be a limiting factor as well. So when I was loosening the shock nut up top here, the whole shaft was spinning. That's a good time for me to show off these tools from Crescent. These are locking adjustable pliers, which is pretty cool. So it'll actually tighten down just a little bit and make sure to hold that in place. So we can cinch this down, get it pretty small so we can lock it over the top here. Before I do that, I should put on the wrench. If I want it to go off, I want it to go that way, and I can set this up. At least there's a lot of room compared to the 4Runner. These are easy. 19 millimeters here for the bottom. Break these loose. Loose? That's off. Wow. Okay. All right, there we go. Keep this thing. You're going to reuse it with new U-bolts. And all of these come off. You pull the U-bolts off. Tight. Those are scrap, and we'll probably try to reuse this one. Yeah. All right, 14 millimeter here. I put a C-clamp on to just keep everything pressed together, and we're gonna loosen this guy up. I don't think it's gonna be spinning on the bottom side just because of the pressure. Oh, see, there it goes. There we are. With the C-clamp there, it's gonna hold this in place. If you don't have that C-clamp there, these springs will continuously press out and keep the pressure on this. So it's a good thing that we put that on there. Want me to jack it up? Yeah, I'll just... And then we can drop these onto the little ones and all of it will hold up. All right, so we lowered the axle down off of the leaf springs and we pulled the whole center pin out. Now I can loosen this. Actually, I can pull the shock out of the way so that you guys can get a better view. And that's gonna go in the bin. Now I can loosen the C-clamp that we had on there, and that's going to completely loosen all these leaves. I added another one up top here to just try to hold stuff into place. So we can take that all the way out. And this guy's garbage as well, getting rid of him. Here's the additional springs from Icon that we're gonna be adding into this lift. You'll see that from the center there's a shorter side and a longer side. The longer side is gonna be on the back side of the leaf spring. And I don't know if you can notice, but right here there's this clip, and we're gonna actually interfere with that clip with these added springs. So we've gotta cut this guy off. There's a rivet on the bottom. We'll cut that off with a grinding wheel, and hopefully we can knock this guy off pretty easily. And we don't really have to worry about it because we're going to be holding it in right here with this new clip. So we've got to take that off before we can start installing these guys. Here we are. We've got the thing all ground down and the clip all gone. I have a big old screwdriver through the middle here trying to keep everything aligned. I have a C-clamp all the way on this side trying to hold everything up. This shouldn't get into the way of when we put these leaves on. Now, the leaves are the bolts undone here, so it's all loose in the middle, and we undid these bolts on the far side because those are going to go up and in. You ready, Brendan? I'm going down, or I've got to move. So I'm removing the jack so I can lean this down and kind of lean it in. There we go. Where'd the nut go? I just had it. I'm gonna just apply some vice grips to the bottom of here so I can hold this still. And then I'll use El Trusty Makita and we'll suck it up. We'll just tighten the rest of this, and you kind of just tighten this till it gets a little tight. Doesn't need a lot of pressure on it. The springs, this is just a centering pin. The springs pressing against it are enough. So we'll just snug that up. and we can take it all apart. That's pretty much it. One of the things that I was looking for was just making sure that these stayed in a line and stayed together. So now we gotta put these little brass sections back in, and then we're gonna lop this off so then we can put the bump stop back into place. All right, so we pushed the axle up and we got a little resistance here. Brennan on the other side's all lined up, so I'm gonna wait to finalize mine, but the bump stop goes on, and then these U-bolts go over the front and the back, just like they kind of came off. Move the jack stand out of the way. And then the base plate that we took off earlier, we just slide that up from the bottom, and it lines up on the axle. These new bolts are 7/8, and so I just got a 7/8 or a 22 millimeter and just zip those up now. All right, we're gonna torque these down to 52 foot-pounds. And I would do like a star pattern and do it twice because you're gonna stretch these things out. And then I highly suggest you checking these after you've driven like 100 or 500 miles and just coming back and checking these again. So 52 foot-pounds. We've torqued all these down, everything's tight, leaf springs are all in place, axle's actually hanging by itself. The last thing we have to do is install the shocks, and so we'll got plenty of room here, so we'll just slide this one into place down here at the bottom. Right, dang, it's tight. Hammer hand. The way that this goes together on the top is it has the stainless washer, then a bushing, and then we go bushing, stainless washer, and then it has a hard washer that goes over the top, and then we add the nut on there once we're going to compress it up. These shocks are really nice. They actually have a Allen head up top for us to hold, so we didn't have to do all the problems like we did before. So we'll just put a ratcheting screwdriver over the top, make sure we're going the right way, and then put that in. All right, so unfortunately this line is going to be really tight, so and this, because we took off that leaf spring, this is what attached to it. So we're just going to cut that off. I'm just going to do it with some tin snips. You could cut this with a cut blade, but I don't want to even risk it getting too close to that e-brake line, so we're just going to cut it. Practice, do a little forearm grip here. There we are. All right, another install in the books. This one's an awesome install. For right around 1,500 bucks, we got 2.8 inches or 2 3/4 inches up in the front. We got an inch in the rear, which brought the whole truck up from the ground to the fender right here in the middle to right around 38 inches. So it leveled the whole truck out also, which was really nice. The Bilstein shocks, the 5100s, are tried and true. They're great shocks. I've been running those on Bobcat for many years. Just recently switched over to Fox to try them out on Bobby, but these shocks are awesome. I've been using them for many years. You can follow or find this kit on Toyota Mafia. I'll put a link down to them below. Follow Trail Tacoma for all these installs and any additional things that are going on with that website, which is growing massively and super quick. Make sure to follow me, Snail Trail 4x4. And like always, my friends, keep crawling.